I sang that song for more than 60 years, a song of praise to Joseph Smith, the prophet of the Restoration and founder of the LDS Church, the church I served as a bishop for 5 years. I knew the church was true. I was a faithful Latter-day Saint. My life has been built on certain truths, but wishing doesn't change the truth. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free." When I finally learned the truth about the real history and doctrines of Mormonism, I realized that I was following the gospel of Joseph Smith and not the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have come to learn that many others have made a similar journey out of the bondage of religion and into an authentic relationship with Jesus. And that's what this show is all about. Courageous people who want to share their story, hoping that you, the viewer, will discover the same new life in Jesus. So if you're a Latter-day Saint who is struggling with questions or seeking a genuine encounter with the Savior, we invite you to join us tonight. We have a joyful message that we want to share with you. Good evening and welcome to the Ex-Mormon Files here in the heart of Salt Lake City. I'm your host, Bishop Earl. Appreciate you spending some of your evening with us. And tonight we have Jennifer Crain. I appreciate you, Jenny, coming and sharing your story. And as we usually do, just learn a little bit. What's interesting about Jenny, I was going to preface this a little bit, is that she was actually raised, what religion were you raised?
Pretty much a variety, but basically Christian. My mother was Methodist, my stepfather was Baptist, grandmother was Lutheran,
well, we all
Irish Catholic.
We all come to religion and Mormonism in different ways. Some of us are born into it and others come for a variety of reasons, as you probably suspect. People come to America sometimes just to join the church, and others fall in love. So what happened to you, Jenny?
So I grew up in a small town, North Utah, Riverside, Utah, in Tremonton. All my friends, there was 3 of us that were non-LDS in my graduating class. So I was pretty determined not to be Mormon.
Yeah. But you knew about Mormon. I mean, Mormons all over.
Oh yeah. They didn't really try to convert us, but they let me go to girls' camp.
Oh, really? When
I was younger, and I did some activities with some friends. There were some girls that weren't allowed to play with me because I wasn't LDS.
Really, you felt that or noticed that, huh?
But it just was, that's just how things were. And I went to college at Utah State, and I fell in love with a return missionary. And, we had been dating for 2 years, I believe, and
he wanted
to get married in the temple, and I was not Mormon. Yeah. And I believe more his family did, more or less.
Was he pretty active?
No.
Oh, even as a return missionary?
As a return missionary, no.
Did he ever talk about the church?
We never went to church together.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of odd.
So he'd just gone inactive after coming home from his mission, huh?
And I believe it was more his family, I think, that was, you have to get married in the temple.
Yeah, he knew it was expected.
Yeah, or maybe it was a way to get rid of me. I don't know. Maybe he didn't think I'd go through with it. Yeah. Okay. So I went through in order to prove to myself I was doing it for myself at the time, I found my own missionaries. I had friends that were LDS, and they never pressured me to be. They just knew I was who I was. Yeah. And they so they got in contact with some sister missionaries, and they came over and we talked, and I went through this 6-week course of reading this, that, and to be honest, I didn't really study.
Really?
I wasn't a very good student.
Well, I appreciate what you were saying there. It was kind of subtle, but you were saying I didn't want to do this as though he were forcing me to do it. If I was going to do this, I wanted to do it on my own.
And that's
admirable. I mean,
I was trying very hard to do it on my own without him pushing me.
Had you seen the fruits of Mormonism? Had you seen the lives that these other people were living?
My friends were
good
always,
or bad, I guess.
Yeah,
but
they were always friendly and happy, and I kind of was lost. I mean, in college, I had Catholic friends, Episcopalian, and I had went to church with a bunch of different. So I was trying to find something to belong to as well, and so.
You thought, okay, well,
yeah, I'll try this, but like I said, I wasn't a very good student.
Did the lessons go well? Did any questions come up during the lessons?
Not really for me. I just sat and listened. We did a lot of activities. It wasn't really studying. We made dinner and made cookies. And
do you think they actually did what they were supposed to? Well, I don't want to point a finger, but were they? Do you think maybe they? When
I look back, I did not get the whole story. As far as what I was supposed to be, like my husband's non-LDS, and he knows more about it than I do. We'll talk about it, and I'm like, I don't remember learning that, and he's like, well, yeah, it's in there.
Because he's done some studying.
Yes, he has, and I'll say, no, it's not that way, and yes, it is. So I don't believe they were very good friends of mine. Sure. They turned out to be good friends of mine.
I guess the boyfriend was excited that you were.
He seemed to be.
Along.
He was the one that actually baptized me.
Okay.
My family came. The one thing I did have a hard time with is, my whole family is non-LDS. So.
Oh, I bet they weren't too happy.
And I'm an only child.
Oh boy.
And my mom and I are very close, and the fact that she couldn't be at the wedding has broke her heart.
She knew that.
And she knew that was coming.
That was coming.
And that broke her heart. She was just beside herself, but she was very supportive. I mean, if this is what you want to do,
well, that
do
was
it.
Sweet of her. I mean, really.
They came to the baptism.
Oh, did they? And did you have a good feeling about that? I mean, did you think you knew the church was true? I mean, I don't know what a person can know in a few weeks, but feel like the church was true?
I felt more of a camaraderie than really a spiritual, okay, this is the right path.
Did you ever hear the term born again when in this missionary process?
No.
No, that wasn't. It was all, what did you feel like the lessons were about?
How the Book of Mormon validated the Bible.
So it was more about the Book of Mormon than the Bible. Was it more about prophets and?
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
like I think President B. Hinckley was the.
Gordon B. Hinckley was the prophet at the time.
Yes, I think so, and we watched a lot of movies,
with the missionaries.
with the missionaries, and I mean, I felt more camaraderie than. I never got the feeling that, like, I never got a testimony. I never had one as far as, I never stood up and said, I feel like the church is true.
They asked you to pray about the Book of Mormon.
They did.
And they asked you probably to read it. And that's what you mean by not being a very diligent.
Yeah.
So it was your fault.
Yeah, it was.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I just never, and I think I'd always known in my heart that this wasn't for me. But I was bound and determined to do it for myself, but I knew
that was the end result.
I was doing it for him.
For him, yeah.
And so when I was baptized, gosh, we dated maybe a month, and I found out he was cheating on me.
Oh.
And he got a girl pregnant.
Oh dear.
And I tried really hard for 6 months to do the right thing.
You went to church?
Went to church.
And of course family wasn't supporting you at all? This was just the friends? And it
was just college friends, and finally went to my bishop because I just was distraught, and it was a bad breakup, like it was my first love kind of thing. And
was he supportive at all? Or?
He was, and I laid everything out, told him everything, and basically I remember will never forget this. He said, "You better call him and tell him that he needs to call his bishop or I'm going to."
Oh.
And so he was very angry, I guess, at the ex.
Yeah.
And then I did have a patriarchal blessing.
And what did you think of that?
It felt like I was with this psychic a little bit. Like,
Did
it didn't feel right.
it?
I kept it, but when we moved out here, everything was stolen. So that was stolen along with my Book of Mormon and my Bible. But
Probably a way to get a copy of it if you really ever.
well, I'm trying to keep my name out of the. I moved out of state, got married, and came back. So now nobody bugs me because they don't know my name.
We won't disclose your name. Okay.
My maiden name.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it sounded like you were trying to make an effort. With your upbringing as it was, did you feel like there was Jesus in your life or in the church that was?
I'd always had Jesus and God always in my life, more like a childlike faith. And I always knew that I could, always handle whatever he gave me, and he would
just
support
had a good
me.
Trust in
and I, talk to him every day, and if I can't handle this, just give me the strength to figure it out, or I've always had that type of, and I know he died for my sins, and I feel like he's here for me, and I think at that time I had a lot of guilt, and I'm not sure if the guilt was because I did the wrong thing by joining the church, or I do feel guilty for wasting others' time because it's a sacred thing to them, and I was just doing it for a stupid boy. Yeah. And I didn't believe it truly. I had a lot of guilt on all of those
so you're
aspects.
not sure exactly what specifically you've maybe felt about anything,
right?
Specifically,
and I basically just kind of fell off the earth, or according to the church. I mean, I was in a college town too, so I moved a lot, and so they couldn't track me.
Did you feel like it strengthened your testimony of Jesus in the Mormon Church?
No. Not.
It wasn't about Jesus then.
No.
The lessons weren't about Jesus. We
No.
talked about that for a second. It was about the Book of Mormon, maybe the prophets.
It was more about Joseph Smith,
Commandments. Did they cover commandments? Going to church and tithing and.
Tithing was in there.
Word
going
of
to
wisdom,
church. Words of wisdom was a big thing.
But not much Jesus.
No.
That you remember.
And I had a really hard time with the Joseph Smith
the whole story.
part. Yeah.
You didn't know anything about polygamy and polyandry at that point?
Well, just from growing up here, you hear things.
But not about Joseph Smith's polygamy, but just people.
And it was just till like a couple months ago that I had heard that he had been married like 40 times, or I don't know.
Yeah, the churches admitted to that.
That's when I had heard that.
Okay.
So I didn't realize that he was a polygamist as well. I just heard the trials and tribulations that he went through too. But and I really had a hard time with that. But I think I stuffed it down because I wanted to make a go of it, and I felt guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, I just and I think if I look back now, I feel more guilty that I didn't follow my heart and my spirit and I was doing something for somebody else that didn't care, and that
obviously didn't care, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that I didn't just find another church. And
so did you just kind of quit going to church after a while?
Yeah, I just stopped.
Did they come and try to encourage you back, or
no?
Because sometimes converts to the church become important in the ward or a group because they are people who are now new and have claimed Mormonism, and so I think the church sometimes looks to them as somebody that can speak now and maybe reinforce the fact that everybody is following the right path. Did you get asked to share your story much? Or?
No, and I specifically would miss the first Sunday because it's testimony meeting.
Oh, did you?
And I didn't want
like to do that
bear, because I've never bared my testimony, and I didn't feel right doing that, and so I wasn't a very good convert.
You weren't a poster child.
No,
for
I
the
was
church,
not,
huh?
and then they probably knew that, and like I said, I moved around a lot, and I was college. I mean,
well, one of the things that we talk about here as a group and deal with this show is the fact that many people have different stories. I mean, we all have different stories, but we think that they relate to some people differently out there. Maybe somebody's hearing something that they say, you know, I did that same thing. I converted, but I did this and did that. Anyway, do you think others are feeling or sensing what you've gone through?
I think some do. I think a lot, even non-converts, the ones that grow up in it, they feel like they have to be married in the temple, and
a lot of pressure, a lot of judging and guilt when that doesn't happen. Yeah, you're probably right.
So, I mean, I have people I work with that have that issue where they have to.
Well, it's all about doing in the Mormon Church, that's for sure.
Definitely.
And when you fall short, then there's guilt and a lot of things happen. So what happens next in life? I mean, the joyful part of this show too is what all of us have finally come to Jesus in a different way. So what happens to bring you around? So
I finished college and I met my husband in London, and
really,
he was
You were studying over there?
Yeah, we both took some classes in London for the summer.
Yeah,
and that was also a kind of a time period where I was dating somebody, again, Mormon, trying to be right.
Thinking of get back to
and I actually went just to see what it was like. I went to church in London just to see how they did things, and so that was a period, and I met David, and
he wasn't a member?
Nope. And we didn't really talk about me being a member or not, because I guess I didn't consider myself a member. I never have baptized, and I just it's
interesting.
I guess I just always knew I wasn't, that I had done it for the wrong reasons.
You know, just as I'm thinking of this, just to mention it, but sometimes we always refer to this as being a member of the church. You're baptized into the church. It's never being baptized into Jesus, is it?
No. No, it's to the...
Yeah, when you convert somebody, you're converting them to the church. You're not converting them to Jesus. That's just, it's kind of a funny, subtle thing, but it really is. We joined the church.
Yeah.
We became a member of the church.
And I've always had Jesus in my life, but I never felt part of the church.
I was never baptized, just baptized into the church.
Even when I would go to church, I felt like I didn't belong. I always felt that, though. So I knew.
So did you and David start going to a church then?
No, not when we first were married. We, lived in Nashville for a while, and then we came out here, and that's when it spurred him to look at things. And
you came back to Utah?
We moved back to Utah because my mom's here.
Okay.
And we went to a couple different churches, and I let him lead the charge. And we found this wonderful church in Brigham, and I haven't been able to go very often, but they've been so wonderful to David as support.
You've had a little ill health or something?
Yeah, I've had a rough couple of years, and they've been great to me, and they didn't even know me. I mean, they were wonderful. And
well, it's so interesting that we'd have a couple of guests in a row who attend Main Street Church up in Brigham City, but we talked a little bit last week with Rochelle and just the joyful message that you get there, the music, and it's so different. Did you feel different from?
I felt immediately welcomed.
You don't miss the first Sunday anymore, particularly.
And in fact, I mean, like I said, I usually am in bed a lot, so But I love the way Pastor Jim teaches. I learn every time.
Yeah.
And wow, I didn't know that. And the great thing is my son, in a couple other churches we went to, they just let him play. But when he goes, he tells me what he learns, and I think that's so wonderful.
He enjoys being there.
Yeah, and he learns about the Bible, and he learns about Jesus, and like I said, the other churches that were closer to us, they just let him play and run around. It was more like a daycare, so that parents didn't have to worry about it, but they teach him.
Do you feel like you're hearing a message of Jesus and the Bible that you didn't hear as a Mormon?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I feel...
Why is that important? Why I'm sorry, you were saying I feel...
Well, I just feel comforted there.
Yeah.
It's like and I've never...
Felt welcome?
I've
judged?
never felt that way.
Yeah, not judged?
No. And that's always... And I think that is the reason I always felt judged walking into a Mormon church. Even walking through seminary building in high school. Like, you know, the big joke was, oh, Jenny's walking through, it's going to burn down, you know.
Yeah.
And so I always felt judged by my fruits or, you know, and I don't feel at Main Street. They're just...
Well, that we've noticed that too. It's just a greater freedom. It's about worshiping, praising Jesus and God, being grateful for all that, and not feeling like you're being preached to as far as this or that commandment that you're not doing and stuff.
And there's the teachings it's the interesting the history and Pastor Jim explains it in a way I can understand it, that I don't feel like I'm, because David, my husband, is on the level up here. I'm down here still. I feel like I'm the 7-year-old in the Sunday school.
You're the baby in Christ.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I don't know a lot.
Just be patient with yourself. It comes.
But I feel like I learn immensely there.
I do too. It's only been 4 years for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we're learning new stuff all the time. And I know Pastor Catlin has a website. Is it MSCBC?
I think
Probably.
so.
.org or something, and you can watch his presentations, sermons. They're wonderful.
I get to watch some of
watch those. Well, I'm glad you were able to come today and share your stories. Anything you'd like to share with the LDS people, even an investigator or person that's a new convert? You really don't know much as a convert. And I'm not even sure a lot of Mormons, even lifelong Mormons, really know that much about their doctrine and their history. Well, so
the interesting thing to me was I've always considered myself Christian, and I guess I didn't realize that. I think most Mormons do
consider themselves Christian.
Yeah.
Well, they believe in the Jesus, you know, the physical Jesus,
and so I guess ask more questions, because I definitely was not taught everything.
Yeah.
I was not taught everything. So.
Well, and like we say, and I noticed this on my mission, it was all about the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, the need for prophets. There was a discussion on the atonement, but it wasn't a born again, full of grace. I never had that concept that Jesus paid for my sins, and my belief in that and trust in that gave me everlasting life. I always thought I was on a ladder of works, you know, had to do this and that to get to the celestial kingdom. So then you tell them to study and to
ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bible means a little bit differently now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It means so much more.
Yeah. Well, it just opens up as you start studying. And prayer. Any difference in prayers?
They do have a certain way of praying.
Yes, they do.
And
and if you don't pray that way,
you don't get to talk to him. I remember as in high school, I came from a small small high school.
Yeah.
And the whole stake was on my stake president, and I'm not sure who else was, as I graduated.
Oh, yeah.
I had to walk by them. And I kind of did a little protest, I guess, with the three of us. I mean, it's not much of a protest.
The three non-Mormon.
Yeah, the three of girls that were non-Mormon. But they said their Mormon prayer during our graduation, and I was offended.
Oh.
And I wanted a Methodist prayer or a Catholic prayer. I mean, I wasn't claiming any of those, but
Right.
I felt like every religion, if we're going to pray,
Yeah.
every religion should be
separation of church and state or something. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't seminary graduation;
No.
it was high school graduation.
Right.
So I was pretty upset, and that's why I guess I embarrassed that I even joined, because I knew.
Yeah. How are your family now? Are they happy that you've made this journey?
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
They are, definitely.
Yeah.
So
very supportive, I'm sure.
Very.
Did they admit to you that they were pretty upset that you were?
My mom did.
Did she?
She was a little worried, but she didn't say anything in the beginning.
Yeah.
But she was a little worried.
Yeah. Did she know much about Mormonism?
No, just as about like what I did, just living here and working here. I mean, not much at all. So.
Well, it's been fun to have you share your story. Anything else you'd like to say, or?
No, I think that's.
You pretty well covered it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I just think that there are people who do begin to investigate the church, and there's so many social aspects to the church that are heartwarming. The whole concept of families are forever, that you can be with your family together forever, is kind of heartwarming. And when you're first investigating the church, there's a lot of support. People come out and try to make you feel good. And if you're, like you were saying, maybe just a little lost, or especially if you've fallen in love, but if, just lost and looking for something, then you feel a comfort there. But when you start finding out what the real doctrine, and then I think people really have to face the facts and not just go on feelings. They have to really look at the facts. So thanks, Jenny. Appreciate you sharing your story. Appreciate you watching. And remember, you're following the gospel of Joseph Smith and not the gospel of Jesus Christ. Good night.